first CD, The Faith of a Crucified Child, is about divorce from a child's perspective. I'm the one that created the CD, The Faith of a Crucified Child. And she's surprised that there was a following in the goth community? What a shock. Being a writer, a songwriter, is a lot like being a writer. When you write, a lot of people tell you to write about what you know. The reason that they tell you this is because you have a lot of information about what you already know. So that was one of the reasons that I chose to write about divorce from the eyes of a child, because that is something that I do know about. My parents were divorced when I was 2.5 years old. My mother was diagnosed as mentally ill. She originally had custody of us, but a few years later, there was a big custody battle, and she did lose custody of us. I was about 4.5 years old, and that was the last time that I saw my mother. I didn't know at the time that I was holding my breath, waiting for many years to reconnect with the woman who gave me life. But years later, when I was almost 24 years old, I was able to obtain my maternal grandmother's phone number, and I called my maternal grandmother looking for my mother. My maternal grandmother informed me that day that my mother was dead, that she had died 8 months earlier. My life changed as a result of that phone call. The person that I was changed as a result of that phone call. There is some debate as to whether or not my mother committed suicide. She was hit by an oncoming train and killed by the injuries sustained from that accident. The engineer said that she walked directly towards the train, and that's why they have suicide on her death certificate. But other people believe that she was on medication and that it was an accident. The story of how this little girl, who was so full of light, became a woman who was so mentally ill and possibly ended her own life, became a great obsession of mine. And I focused on it and dwelled on it for many, many, many years. But in the end, I don't think I ever really came up with any answers. I was just able to resolve my own anguish and pain and get on with my life. But in the process of all that, I created the CD, The Faith of a Crucified Child. And it is really about my journey of dealing with the issue of the loss of my mother. It also deals with the guilt that I felt because there was a period of my life that I denied my mother and I rejected my mother because she was mentally ill. And by the time I realized that that was not the right thing to do, she had already died, and I was never able to make direct amends to her. So my CD is kind of my amends to my mother, and it's also my hope for both sides of the equations for other people. I hope that any child who hears my CD will try to think of their parent with love and compassion, and maybe not slam the door if things aren't going the way they want them to in the relationship. On the other hand, I'm also hoping that any parents who hear the CD will understand what a great impact that actions and behaviors they take, how they unknowingly really, really affect their children at a very deep level. I'm not saying you should blame your parents or that parents should live their lives for their children, but there should be a consciousness, and there should be an awareness, and there should be a respect from both sides of the equation.